There aren't many YouTubers that'll make a video like the one I'm about to make. Today I'm talking about overrated watches. Every year I make a video where I talk about the worst watches of the year. Some of those watches will be incorporated into this video, but I tried to be a little bit broader in scope. So without further ado, let's talk about some overrated watches. So I'm gonna start out with a brand that I like and that I have worked with in the past. I have featured many of their watches here on my channel, Baltic. However, when they came out with one watch in particular, I immediately said that it was overrated, and that is their MR1, the Micro Rotor 1. When they came out with this watch, I was really not taken with it at all. However, it seemed like the watch world was. Everybody loved this new watch. The only reason why I didn't like it immediately when I saw it was because I knew exactly what the movement was. This had a micro rotor movement, was one of the first brands to use this movement. However, it's a very cheap micro rotor made by Hangzhou, and this was a movement found in watches that cost around $150. Also, it was basically a blatant copy of a few different watches. So FP Journe or a Patek Philippe. There were plenty of watches that it was inspired by, and I think people thought that this was some sort of original design. It really wasn't. I thought this was completely overrated, and I still do. There are plenty of Baltics that I love. I currently own a Baltic in my collection. I own a Prismic with a stone dial. I think those watches are amazing, and if you compared the two, there really is no comparison. The Prismic is so much more of a watch than that MR1, in my opinion. I know there are a lot of people, I have friends who own that MR1 and they love them. I just don't. If you love the watches that I talk about here on my channel, you're really going to love the website that I'm about to tell you about. It's called Wristrebels. Wristrebels is a website that has all of those small micro brands and independent brands that are really hard to find, all in one place. Brands like Formex, Awake, Martin Designs, and Squale, and many other brands you won't find anywhere else. Definitely check out Wristrebels at wristrebels.com. Also check out their Instagram at Wristrebels, and if you end up buying something, tell them that Watch Chris sent you. The next watch that I want to talk about is really a brand, Laurier. I have talked about Laurier here on my channel in the past, and then at some point I stopped talking about them. When I saw them hands-on, when I finally got hands-on with them, and that was actually at a wind-up event here in New York City, I did not feel like they were well made. All of their watches are homage watches. Again, I think a lot of people don't realize that, but essentially everything that they make is an homage, and I have never felt like their quality equals their prices. So they are overrated in my opinion because they do get somehow a lot of fanfare behind them. People are constantly hyping up these watches. In particular, there were two models that I really did not like. That was the Neptune, and I believe it was the Falcon. Their bracelets just felt completely cheap, and overall the watch just felt kind of junky in my hands. Now, you may have a completely different experience with this or a completely different take on it. It could have been just a bad experience that I had when I felt these watches in hand. However, I have friends, again, who own these watches, and they do agree with me that they are cheap feeling. They are pretty expensive. However, they love the designs. And like I said, I believe that a lot of people know that these are homage designs, and that is not a bad thing. But overall, I think these are overrated rather than underrated because of the price and the quality and how people talk about them as if they are these amazing watches that are super special, and I just don't think they are. The next watch I want to talk about again is a brand, and you're not going to find this a surprise because I included this brand in my worst watches of 2026. It is Denison. I saw Denison in articles and on Instagram, and I was like, wow, this looks pretty cool. I saw a lot of the people that I follow talking about these watches, and when I finally saw them in person, I was blown away, not by how good they were, but how cheap they felt in hand. And the prices on these watches are astronomical compared to what you are actually getting. These are quartz watches that have a semi-square shape. They're designed by the person who designed the Royal Oak offshore. I mean, I don't know if that's actually a celebrated watch in general, but I know a lot of people, the same people celebrating this watch, would probably dog those watches. So I don't know what that means, but these are cheap feeling in hand. They have quartz movements and they charge around $800 for them. Now they get stone dials. They have some pretty cool designs. I think the designs overall are pretty cool, but when you get one in hand, and if you ever get the chance to feel one in hand, they are so light and cheap feeling that the idea of paying $800 for this watch kind of rubs me the wrong way. It feels like a cheap mall watch rather than a watch that cost $800. Next, another basically a genre of watches, and I know a lot of people will completely disagree with me on this one. It is the Seiko 5s. Now, specifically the Seiko 5KXs. So the Seiko 5KXs, the ones that were meant to be the replacement for the SKX. They made dress KXs as well. I'll group those in with this. I really like the field watches. I won't include those in this discussion of overrated watches. I think those are actually maybe even underrated. I really like the field watches. It's the dive style watches and the dressy dive style watches that they make. So those 5KXs and the dress KXs, I think they are completely overrated. I've talked about them here on my channel many times. I think some of them are actually pretty cool, but they are definitely overrated for how people talk about them. They're not very expensive, so that is something that is going for them, but Seiko still have a long way to go to compete with these watches. These watches are terrible when you look at the competition. You're still getting things like pressed clasps. Even the scissors on the clasps are pressed. That is absolutely ridiculous in today's day and age. The bracelets on these watches in general are great. I'll let that pass for the price since these are Seikos, but press clasp, that makes no sense. On the fly micro adjust, that makes no sense. Again, in this day and age when you can get a watch for around $300 with these options. Sapphire crystals. How are you still not offering sapphire crystals? Are you guys not awake? Do you not pay attention to what is going on in the watch industry? There are watches out there that cost $300 that get sapphire crystals, on the fly micro adjust, much better bracelets, better cases at this point, more water resistance, literally everything. Even the movements are higher grade than what Seiko are offering in these watches. You can get Miyota 9000 series at that $300 to $400 price point where Seiko 5 lives. And it makes absolutely no sense. So if you're going to buy a Seiko 5 at this point, especially the 5KX, then you probably haven't looked at the rest of the market first to figure out if there's anything better out there. And that's really unfortunate because Seiko has a really good opportunity to compete with micro brands with these watches if they would just make some really basic improvements. And they just won't because of costs. Otsuka Lotec. I know a lot of people again out there will be mad with me saying that these are overrated, but they are truly overrated. There are some cool complications that they are doing. They have a double retrograde, which I talked about last week in a video that I made where I was talking about luxury watches that sell for really good prices. And I wasn't talking about the Otsuka Lotec. I was actually talking about a Jean d'Yves, which did it way earlier than Otsuka Lotec, and they also used a Swiss movement, a ETA 2892. This was a pretty high grade watch that sells for around $2,000. But if you want an Otsuka Lotec, you're going to have to spend around $5,000. Yes, you can buy them directly from the brand, and there are plenty of ways to buy them directly from the brand. You just have to know the right people at this point. If you want one, you can definitely get one. However, they are around $3,500 and they go up from there. If you want to buy them on the secondary market, they start at around $5,000. Most of these watches have very basic movements inside. So we're talking about Miyota movements that are powering these watches. It's either an 8 series Miyota movement or a 9 series Miyota movement. These are around $50 movements, somewhere in that range. Yes, they are putting a really cool bespoke in-house module on top of that to get these functions. These are made in Japan, but I'm not sure if they're entirely made in Japan, so I'm not going to speculate about that. But I think the prices are very high for what you are getting. I really like the complications, like I said, especially that double retrograde. I like their jump hours. I think they look good. I like their designs, somewhat steampunk, something that I really love, and you can see in my watch collection. I have some very overrated watches, I would say, as well in my collection. These don't feel cheap. They feel expensive. It's just that I don't think that they should be the prices that they are. That's kind of the only thing that I have with Otsuka Lotec. The next two watches that I want to talk about are watches that I think a lot of people feel are cheap. However, there are also a lot of people that hype these watches up for one reason or another. The first one is a D1 Milano. This is the polycarbon watches that they make, specifically the sketch watches, but all of their polycarbon watches I feel are really overrated. They are cheap feeling, very, very cheap feeling. They have a coating on them I really don't like the feeling of. They are obviously cheap quartz watches that aren't meant to break the bank. They are affordable, they're fun, there's lots of colors. They make sketch versions, like I was saying before, that look like they are sketches of a watch on your wrist. I get it, they're kind of cool looking. At the same time, I don't like the idea of that plastic against my wrist. It has a texture to it or a coating to it that I don't like, and that could be a personal thing. These aren't very expensive. Like I said, $200 for the time only, and then they go up to around $300 for a chronograph. Maybe it's just me. I would never buy one of these. I did buy, actually. I won't say that. I did buy one, and I immediately sold it because I wasn't in love with it. So there you go. Last but not least, and I think every single overrated list will probably include the watch that I am talking about today. I'm not going to be talking about Rolex, because I do think Rolex is overrated. Richard Mille, I think Richard Mille is overrated. Those are brands that I could just put right into this video, and I think everybody else puts those brands in videos like this. But there's another brand that I didn't mention, and that is the MoonSwatch. I don't feel like the 50 Fathoms swatch is overrated. I think that the MoonSwatch is, though. There's just a fatigue that has come with these watches. They have never been really well made. They feel like plastic on your wrist. They're extremely light. The straps are really cheap. The watches are really cheap. You can't service them, and I think they are good looking. So I will say that they are good looking, and they look like a Speedmaster, but again, they are very, very overrated for what you are getting. And I think the Speedmaster in general, they've released too many Speedmasters over the past few years, and they have been releasing too many MoonSwatches over the past few years. Obviously, they are making a lot of money from them, so that's the reason why they are doing it, and a lot of people are still hyping them up. I was one of them when they originally came out. I was very excited about them. That excitement has really died down. When they come out with a new one, I kind of roll my eyes. At this point, they are all starting to look the same. And that is something that has happened with the Speedmaster in general, not only the MoonSwatch Speedmaster, but again, that is just me personally. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. Tell me some brands that you guys think are overrated. I would like to make more videos like this in the future, and I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. What do you think is an overrated watch or a watch brand? Put that comment down in the comment section below. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. I see that most of the people who watch my videos are not subscribed, so if you can subscribe, just take a moment and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And of course, hit that bell icon and like this video. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. Thank you for watching this video. I will catch you guys in the next video.